Hello, it's Lromanosky from Calgary, Canada, shooting from the Lugnuts facility. And how do you say now for something completely different? What we have here is a motorcycle engine trike. This is a Campana T Rex. Just for a little bit of background, Campana is a Canadian company based in Quebec. It derives its name from Campana, who was a Formula Ford racer and who built race cars. And so actually the first time I drove this car and I sat in it, I was like, wow, this feels like a Formula Ford. And I guess the main reason for that is the exposed suspension that's all rose jointed. So there's no bushings in the suspension. And so when you're driving, you see the wheels go up and down and you feel like absolutely every pebble on the road, and that brought back my Formula Ford memories from quite a long time ago. Anyway, so this is, for whatever reason, Canadian companies seem to make a lot of trikes. There's a Bombardier, the Can-Am series, and this one, and the Campana, they've made commercially available a version of this since the 90s. And it was homologated to be sold in the US, I think from 2001. There's a lot of great videos of it from Jay Leno's garage. And Jay Leno took an interest in the car. And so there's a lot of, it's a fairly well-known, well-established manufacturer who's, been producing, a version of this, for over 20 years. So it isn't, somebody who made 6 cars and it's like a homemade car or whatever. It takes a serious amount of effort to homologate these cars for EPA and DOT for the US market and so on. So it's a serious effort from a company that's been around a while, that's made, I think they make a couple of these a month or something around there anyway. So it's in relatively high production for something like this for a long time. And the reason that's important is because they have distribution network and spares and dealers and so on. And so if you need pieces for the car, you can still, go to the company and get the spares. Okay, so let's start technically. So we have the 1352 cc Kawasaki inline 4-stroke water-cooled engine with a 6-speed sequential gearbox, chain drive to the rear, and then a Campana developed mechanical reverse gear. So not an electric reverse gear, but an actual mechanical reverse gear. Okay, so that's what powers it fore and back, and we can maybe get a shot here of the sequential gear lever. So that would be the similar mechanism to what's on the motorbike. We have a clutch pedal. So that's really engineered and routed well and has a natural feel. And then we have a digital display which shows you what gear you're in, and you can toggle through various information, and the controls that would be familiar to you with a motorbike. Okay, so that's the drivetrain, and then we can see in the corners here we've got the the double wishbone suspension, and these are spherical bearings, or better known as rose joints. That whole corner is like I said, basically race car practice, like Formula Ford, and in fact it might actually be Formula Ford stuff. So you really feel everything on the road in a way that you can't really imagine for a road car, because after this a road car feels like really soggy. So it's incredibly direct. Okay, so you've got adjustable coilover springs for dampers and spring damper units, and then in the front we have two. These are 16 by 7 inch rims wearing 205 45 16s on the front, and those are Willwood cross-drilled, like radial and axially vented cross-drilled rotors with Wilwood twin piston calipers. This vehicle only weighs about 1,000 pounds. So that, I mean, brakes like that, you know, you see on vehicles that are more than double the weight. And then coming around the rear of the car, we've got a 17-inch wheel. This is a 10-inch wide by 17-inch wheel, and that's running a 285/40 17s. And these wheels would be original to this vehicle. It only has a couple thousand kilometers on it, but of course those date to near 2007. So when you combine 200 horsepower with 1,000 pounds, you get pretty electrifying performance. So 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds, 144 mile per hour top speed if you're brave enough. I'm not sure what the turbulence in the cabin is. It's got this wind deflector here, so that I'm sure sends just about everything right over the car. But anyway, this is a vehicle of extreme performance. I also read that it at corners at 1.3 Gs. That would be higher significantly than any four-wheeled, you know, Porsche GT3 or equivalent. And you can tell that it's just very low to the ground, very wide in the front, and it wears sticky tires. Okay, so kind of a cross between a Formula Ford in the front and a motorcycle in the rear. I suppose that's accurate. It's constructed of triangular 1.5-inch tubular steel with a safety roll cage and triangulated sections in the side for side impacts, coupled with 3-point inertia reel seat belts. The passengers sit well inboard of the safety cage. Okay. We have a detachable wheel, quick release reel to aid getting in and out of the car, which you may or may not use. Inside the car, I'm 6 feet and a little bit, and I just fit. I've got a little bit of a room, and I've got a pad here for the roll cage. You can drive this car with a helmet or not, depending on regulations. I wore a helmet, and I had enough clearance. With that, I've got a good view of the instruments, and the the steering wheel with a squared off bottom. Actually, feels nice. Controls feel nice. Self-canceling indicators. We've got the horn here. We've got lights. We've got the power to the car, and then the starter. So we've got the seat back has a couple of adjustments in it, and the pedal box has adjustment as well. So the seat base is fixed, but the seat back has a little bit of adjustment, and the pedal box has a bit of adjustment. And there's actually, a decent amount of room in the cabin, and the rearward visibility isn't the car's strong point, but it's adequate through the side view mirrors, and the shoulder checking and so on is of course easy because you've got a single rear wheel. You don't have a lot of width in the rear, so you can actually see quite a bit in the 3/4. This is a very low machine. It like I said, it's not much higher off the ground than a Formula Ford. And this kind of reminds me of a Caterham 7, where you can kind of put your hand on the ground. But it feels a little bit like a Caterham 7, actually, which is, sort of disconcerting when there's a semi next to you, but that's probably not where you're going to be driving the car. What really makes it cool though is that you get a clear view of the suspension, and then when you're turning, you can see the wheel move up and down in response to the bumps in the road and so on, and the compression of the suspension. So that actually really adds a lot to the driving, to be able to see the instruments, see the revs, see that, but also really see the suspension working. And then of course you get a tremendous amount of ventilation in the cabin. So the whole experience is really raw and visceral, yet quite a bit, I would safer than a motorbike. Because it's a relatively high displacement motorcycle engine, there's still lots of torque. So there's no issue, launching the car. And when I was driving it, I didn't have the courage to really take it over about 5,000 or 6,000 RPM, and it was going plenty fast. You can hold the revs at, 2,000 RPM or something, let out the clutch, and get smooth takeaways in traffic. Getting out of the car gracefully isn't too bad. You've got these big roll bars, and you can then just prop yourself up and extract your foot, and you are good. Okay, so that's, and I guess in short, I'd encourage you to watch some of these videos, and we'll put links for them below from Jay Leno's garage. There's a couple of great videos there that show some of the people from Campana and how they met Jay and how Jay got familiar with the vehicle and what he thinks of it, et cetera, et cetera. So those are good videos to watch just for that endorsement from Jay Leno, who's kind of seen and driven everything, seen and met everybody, and knows every story of every low volume production, sports car and supercar maker. And he had really nice things to say about Campana, who he knew from Formula Ford, okay, or knew from those circles. So about this particular car, Trike, it was spec'd black on black. The livery, of course, is a wrap which can be removed. The owner of the Trike owns successful restaurants, a restaurant chain, and one of them was Melrose. You can see on the back here the heart of the Red Mile, and that's a reference to the Calgary Flames winning the Stanley Cup and everybody flooding the streets on 17th Avenue where this restaurant Melrose was, and where I used to live next door. So I'd walk out my front door and there's 10,000 people on 17th Avenue. You can still find some interesting videos on YouTube of the Red Mile, by the way. Anyway, so that Melrose was kind of the center of that movement, the playoffs, the Flames winning, and everybody sort of congregating around that restaurant. And Melrose was kind of the heart of all that. So that's where the livery comes from. And obviously you can take off whatever you want and leave whatever you want. It's pretty cool, and it certainly gets a lot of attention. So it remains in basically as new condition. There's a couple little marks on it. The wrap is a little bit on the nose here. There's a couple little marks. We can come over here. Obviously, getting in and out of it, the carbon fiber piece here is, there's a couple little places where there's some scuffs, maybe a little mark here on the roll cage. We can see that. But other than that, it's as new. He did install some aftermarket carbon fiber performance silencers on it. So that's one modification from new. So the overall condition, though, I can't really fault it. It's about what you'd expect from a 2,000 kilometer bike or trike that's had some occasional use. None of the wheels are curbed. There's no damage on it. There's no damage underneath it, and it's basically an as new 2007. The tires are going to be original to it, so obviously they have lots of tread, and this has been obviously stored indoors, so there's no cracking or UV damage. That said, if a new set of tires will give you more grip if you wanted to do that. New tires would be a little bit quieter, but you're not going to notice that. So that. Now the fun bit. We'll do a driving video on this T Rex. Aidan and I will shoot it. We'll need our microphones, and we'll just demonstrate the start, reverse gear, go up and down through the gears. The vehicle's capable of extreme performance, so that'll have to wait to another day. We're just in an industrial area here, but we can at least demonstrate that everything functions correctly. So let's go, and I'll just demonstrate how to start it here if you want to come around. And I guess the first step is getting in it, and it's got a quick release wheel, so you can take the steering wheel off, which makes things easier, but you don't have to. So you slide your foot in, brace yourself on the side panel, move your other foot in, and slide yourself in the seat. Okay, so not too bad. The wheel makes it a little bit easier. We will put the ignition key in. Turn it on, and we have the LCD display here. The really loud buzzer is telling you to put your seatbelt on, so we'll do that. It's inertia reel seatbelts. Okay, so it's fairly fussy about that. We can see that we're in neutral, okay, so we will turn the power on and off. This is the starter, and we'll fire it up. We can see that it has 2,262 kilometers, and so if I want to go forward, I have the sequential lever here, and maybe go to the other side. And so then I just tip it forward, and I'm in first gear. So now I've got a foot clutch, and I'm just going to move it. And it's actually pretty easy. To maneuver. Okay, so then if I want to go into reverse, I'm going to hit this one back, and I'm in neutral. Campana designed a reverse gearbox operated by this lever here on the side, and so when I'm in neutral, I can put that back. Now I get an R on the instrument cluster, and now I've engaged reverse gear, and again I let out the clutch, and I've got reverse gear, and I've got adequate rear view vision. Okay, so now we move the lever forward, and the reverse light goes out, and we're back in first gear, and we have drive. All right, so let's go. Let's take it on the road. All right, so I have no idea if my hat's going to stay on. You want to be on good terms with your passenger on this thing. There's not a whole lot of room. It's a 1350cc Kawasaki engine with 200 horsepower, and I think about 100 pound-feet of torque. So 100 pound-feet of torque is still, lots to move a vehicle that's 1,000 pounds. You sit really low, and your first first impressions are that you really see the wheels move. So it's a sequential box. I mean, I can't say that I'm well practiced at driving this thing. It pulls well from really low down, so it's not too fussy about what gear you're in. Shoulder checking's not too bad. And you've got good visibility for your blind spots. It's fifth gear. 3,500 RPM. Fourth gear, third gear. I'm starting to get the hang of it. There's not too much turbulence in the cabin. It's not blowing my hat off, which I was kind of expecting. Good brakes. It's
a weird sensation when you're no longer moving.
Yeah, it really is sensory overload. It's a little bit tough to take in how fast everything is, how fast the gearbox is, how direct the steering, and all the noise and the wind, and trying to pay attention to everything and cancel these indicators, which should be self-canceling, but I haven't figured that out yet. So it is a real sensory experience. I mean, these days you're talking about, you know, visceral cars. Yeah, and I'm not brave enough to use the full rev range here. When it gets to 7,000 RPM, you can tell that it's just getting going. And we even got a little bit of wheel spin there, and that's a big rear tire. So I'm not going to be too brave. Even 5,000 RPM seems like a lot. There's no slop in the drivetrain. It really is like, it really does feel to me like a Formula Ford. Can you get the wheel moving up and down? And it's rose jointed, so you just feel everything. Yep, it feels like, well, basically it feels like a racing car. There's it's three-wheeled, motorcycle engined, but it feels like a Formula Ford, which is no surprise because the guy who built it was a Formula Ford racer. It was a pretty wild machine. How do you feel?
Oh, indescribable.
Yeah, it's like this thing's like effing nuts, isn't it?
It's nuts.
All right. Well, let's quit while we're ahead and take a deep breath. Okay. So that's the 2007 Campana T Rex. If you want a driving experience, it doesn't get any rawer than that. Thanks. Please like and subscribe. So, in summary, obviously, it's not the most practical machine, but it is a super fun toy. And I think what's interesting about it is that it's not much bigger than a bike. Some of these other trikes, like even the Bombardier Can-Am and there's some other like giant motorcycle-based trikes out there, and they're actually pretty big machines, and they feel a little bit, they're just big. This is really compact. The tube frame skeleton really sort of wraps the mechanicals, tightly, and it's you really feel kind of an intimate connection with the mechanicals and the road and the suspension and so forth, leading to a really visceral experience. I sold a Can-Am here not long ago, and it's just completely different. They're both trikes, they're both motorcycle engined, but the Can-Am was really quite a soft grand touring thing. So as a toy and as like a visceral experience, it's really quite special. They're not cheap new. They're like $75,000 Canadian. So this is an opportunity for somebody to get a really fun toy at a fraction of the cost new, and on a vehicle that basically hasn't been driven. So with that, Lromanosky from Calgary, Canada, and the Lugnuts facility. This is one of a bunch of cool vehicles that we have. Most of them we sell online at auctions, but we do sales from the showroom as well. The vehicle is at the Lugnuts facility at the moment. So thank you very much. Please like and subscribe. Lromanosky from Calgary, Canada.